Hey folks, welcome back to our Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Built for War. Built for War is brought to you by Mr. B Games. It's for 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, and games range anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes. More than any other factor, World War II was decided by the decisive use of armor to outflank, outgun, and outrun the enemy. Innovations in design throughout the war were staggering. Guns grew larger, armor became thicker, engines and tread got bigger. Other additions changed the battlefield as well. Radios, high explosives, machine guns, turret speeds, and even crew training, all of which changed immensely during the war. Built for War put you in charge of designing the main battle tank for one of 4 major combatants in the war. Will you design a behemoth to top the vaunted King Tiger at the expense of agility and speed? Or will you pursue faster, more nimble tanks to capture objectives and kill enemy support troops, knowing your tanks are vulnerable to the big guns of your enemies? These are the hard choices that you'll have to make. You decide, you design, but whatever you choose, do it well. Your country is counting on you. So in this game, you will vie for points by collecting tank kill tiles, capturing objectives, deploying support units, and spending initiative that you collect during the course of the battle. Built for War plays out over 4 years, each of which is broken into 4 seasons. Scoring occurs at the end of each year. At the end of 4 years, the player with the highest score will win the game. Now, each player is going to have their own player board or tank schematic, and you'll be taking on the role of one of the 4 nations. You've got the US, you've got the British, you've got the Russians, and you have the Germans. Now, these tank schematics all are very similar in how they work. There's one difference that we'll take a look at, but in general, they all pretty much lay out the same. And this is where you're gonna be building upon your tank, giving it special abilities, putting new tiles on it to develop certain aspects of your tank. Now, if you look closely at the board, you'll see where all the different tiles will lay out on the tank itself. But at the top is your weight. This is something you have to keep an eye on throughout the game as you do different various tasks and actions. So all tanks start at a weight of 5, and this will be fluctuating throughout the game as you build new and better technologies for your tank. Now, off to the side of your player board is where you find a doctrine tile. Now, you have some options with this doctrine tile. It's double-sided, and it gives you a little bit different ability, perhaps something different than the other players, giving your tank or nation just a little bit of an edge perhaps. But then you also have tank kill tiles. These are what you're gonna be using for victory points throughout the game, hopefully gaining more of them as you go along. Now, you're gonna start with 2 of those, and then below that is where the technology and blueprints are stored. Now, based on the player count in the game will determine how many tiles you start with, but throughout the course, you're gonna be adding blueprints to the bottom and eventually building them and adding them to your tank. And then you have the main board. This is where you'll be placing your support cards and your action cards. Also, this is where you're tracking the years and seasons you are currently in. Also, you'll be tracking your initiative order as well as your victory points on this board. Each player has a colored disc matching their nation, and those are placed next to the board and on the initiative track. And yes, there are dice in this game. You will be using these dice as you engage in battle with your fellow players. Now, depending on how you've built out your tank, the technologies you have in play will greatly help you or give you an edge and augment those dice rolls in defense and offense. Now, there's the technology tiles, and you have the basic ones that you're going to start with, and they're in the first couple years. In the later years, you're going to be using the more advanced technology tiles to build out your tank. Some really impressive things you can do with these machines. Now, finally, depending on the player count will determine how many action cards get dealt above the board, and then you're ready to begin. So the game plays out over 4 years, 1942 to 1945, and each of those years has the different seasons, as you'd expect, and each of those seasons has phases. First, we have the research and build phase, building out the different technologies or looking into possibly building them out for your tank. And then we move to the combat phase, basically dueling it out with your fellow players, trying to get the most victory points and initiative along the way. Also, you're going to be doing an end of season and then finally an end of year phase. Now, this first phase, research or build, is really what I consider to be the heart of the game. It's where you're adding all kinds of new things to your tank, but you have a choice here. You're either looking through the tiles that you've been given and choosing one and placing it into your blueprint area face down. Or you're taking all the tiles in your blueprint area and building them, adding all kinds of awesome things to your tank. It could be simple as suspension, giving you the ability to handle more weight for your tank. Or maybe you're adding a new big gun to do more damage to all the players at the table. Either way, you're going to be adding these different tokens or tiles, and always remembering to make adjustments to your weight based on the new gear that you have put on your tank. And of course, there's several icons to be mindful of as you're building out these technologies. Let's take a quick look at these. You've got Blitz, which influences the power and speed of your tank. You've got cannons, obviously a tank's ability to destroy other tanks. Machine guns are all about a tank's ability to kill support units. And of course, you have support. This is a tank's ability to recruit units to support the tank in battle. You have turret technologies, which influences the tank's ability to gain initiative. You have armor, which obviously impacts a tank's ability to survive when it is fired upon by other tanks. Suspension, I really like this one. This reduces a tank's weight, allowing it to be more nimble on the battlefield. Crew represents the crew's training programs and overall crew skill. Mechanics, very important, are field mechanics, infrastructure, and represent parts required to repair tanks on the battlefield. Now, tiles with no icons are auxiliary technologies that represent the assorted tank capabilities that were developed during the war. Tech with a dark icon are primary technologies, but you can only have one of each primary type. Now, tech with a faded or ghosted icon are secondary technologies and can have any number of those on your tank. Phase 2 is all about combat actions. The cards that are available on the table will show what is available to you for that particular round. Now, there's several different types that can be here. There's even a wild that allow you to take advantage and use any of the possible combat actions available to you. But there are several different types here. You have things like support, which is going to allow you to draw 2 support cards, pick one and put it in front of you. Now, there's 2 different types here. You have objectives and you have support units. They all have similar icons to the icons you're putting on your tank, but they're going to give you different bonuses and things as you put them into play. And objectives and units can be combined to fortify and give you better armor and defense as you play. Or you might choose a turret action, which allows you to move up the initiative track. Now, why is the initiative track important? Well, because mostly it allows you to go first if you have the highest, but also it gives you extra protection based on where you are on the track, depending on your armor and where it's facing the opponents. Also, the initiative track can be used to get victory points at the end of every year or end of the game. So keep that in mind as you gather that initiative up. Now, also, you have the option of doing a blitz if that card is available. And the blitz will do similar things. You can get initiative from a blitz card, but also it allows you to steal objectives from other players. Or you can choose to fire machine guns if that's available to you. And what that is going after support units or support cards from your fellow players, trying to seize those cards basically and gain the victory points. And it's a roll off. You're gonna roll dice and compare values. If you have the highest, you win. Now, you're rolling against their defense and you're rolling with your guns to attack. And you just have to beat that score. But if you do tie, well, then you suppress that unit and you'll put a token on there to represent it. And important to note that when you do these rolls, make sure you incorporate all the pluses that you have for your tank and technologies and support and so forth. Now, also the last big option you have here, if it's available to you, is firing your cannon's big gun. You're basically going after the other tanks here, trying to take them down a notch. So you're going to do the same similar thing. You're going to be rolling dice and comparing values, defense versus offense here. And based on your tank and the different technologies you have, we'll add pluses to those rolls, again, augmenting your ability to attack. And depending on where you are on the initiative track, will determine what level of armor you get to be protected with. So you roll those dice and compare values. If you, as the attacker, have the higher value, well, then you will overkill and you will take one of their tank kill tokens. Now, you only get to tank one of these tokens once per turn, but you can still keep attacking as you did overkill. And what this does is allow you to reduce the number of tank kill tokens your other fellow players have. Now, why is that important? Because these tokens are going to give you victory points. So the end of season phase is a bit of a cleanup. So you're going to refill the combat action cards equal to the number of players plus 2, and you're going to move the marker along the track to the next season. Now, if you get to the end of that year, well, then you're going to total up victory points based on your tank kill tokens, based on the support units and things that you've captured, as well as taking a look at the initiative track and potentially spending initiative to get more victory points. You'll be moving up along the victory point track at the end of every year, totaling up what you have achieved for that particular year. And then at the end of that final year, 1945, you'll total up all your score, and whoever has the most will be the ultimate tank commander and technologist of World War II. Alright folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen here has been in prototype form. So keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now, with that said, I still feel like the heart of this game is building out the schematics and the blueprints of your tank. Really enjoyed that part. Obviously, the combat is high action, dice back and forth and so forth, but I really love developing the tank and making it better than everybody else's. But folks, ultimately, if this looks like something that would be of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it from me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.